A few months ago, I reviewed the Poco F6 and I knew the stress that I went through to get that phone in Nigeria. I had to buy it on Amazon and use a shipping company to kind of ship it to Nigeria. I used Hiroshi to get the phone here in Nigeria, and it took like a couple of weeks, like 3 weeks. But now if I want a Poco phone, I don't have to go through that stress again because Poco is officially in Nigeria and they launched 3 devices. One of them is the Poco C61 and it's more of an entry level phone. This phone costs around 102,000 naira, which is quite affordable if you compare it to, let's say, what is going on right now. The naira devaluation has kind of made phones very expensive, and to get basic phones like this one, you need to spend over 100k, which does not make sense. Well, I've had this phone for a couple of days now and I've kind of been using it the way I'm supposed to use it, as an entry level phone, and I'm going to share my experience with you guys in this video. Let's talk about the content in the box. If you get this phone, you are getting a 10 watts charger, a USB A to C cable, and you're also getting a SIM ejector tool and the phone itself. That's pretty much everything you get in the box when you buy this phone. And I'll say for the price, it's quite okay. They even tried to give you a charger because there are even more expensive phones than this one that don't come with charger in the box anymore. And one thing that I wish was inside the box of this phone is a TPU case, even if it's just like the basic silicone TPU case that they just give you. I wish they added that in the box of this phone. And I'll say the phone has 3 gigs RAM, at least my variant has 3 gigs RAM and 64 gig storage space, which is quite, not really too much space in 2024. But again, for the price of this phone, 102,000 naira, I feel that's just what you can get. But there's a variant of this phone that has up to 128 gigs of storage space and even 6 gigs RAM, and I feel that one is going to perform better if you get it. But I'm not even sure if that variant will be available in Nigeria. Now let's go ahead and talk about the design of this phone, and it might surprise you that the back of this phone is glass. This is not a new design. It's a design that I'm familiar with. I've seen it on the Redmi A3 and the Redmi A3X earlier this year, so I know everything that this phone holds in terms of design, and you can't really take away anything from it when you put it side by side with the Redmi A3X. It's basically the same thing, but it is really surprising that it's a glass back. I mean, even phones that are more expensive than this one don't normally come with glass back, but you have that here, which is something you have to appreciate. But then glass is glass, and if it touches the ground, glass breaks, unlike plastic that is a bit more durable. Now I've talked about this large circle camera cutout. I've talked about it countless times on different phones that I've reviewed this year, and it is still the same thing that we have going on here with this kind of golden accent around the camera cutout. The phone has 2 cameras, and we're going to talk about the cameras before the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. And that's just it. We have a side mounted fingerprint scanner that also doubles as the unlock key, and I'll tell you that it's quite fast at unlocking the phone. The volume rockers are also tactile, which makes a lot of sense. At the bottom, we only have the USB-C charging port and a microphone for calls. At the top, we have the top firing speaker, which doesn't really sound well, but for the price, I think this is just the best that you can get. And we also have a headphone port, which is impressive for people that are into those type of things. Now, one thing I will say is, as far as the build quality of this phone is concerned, it is really a sturdy phone, and you kind of feel comfortable holding it. Your fingers just rest at the back of the camera, giving it this overall kind of vibe and comfort when you hold the phone. The sides of the phone are curved, and it doesn't dig into your palm because the edges are not really sharp. They are curved, which is also impressive. Now, the phone supports dual 4G SIM cards, and there's also a slot for memory card in case you want to increase the storage of this phone. As far as design goes, I will not say this is something new. This is something that we've seen on a number of devices in 2024, and it's just okay. Let's talk about the display. We have a 6.71 inch IPS LCD display, and it also has a 90 Hz refresh rate, but by default the screen is set to 60 Hz, and you need to go into the settings of this phone and switch it back to 90 Hz to kind of get that smooth scrolling experience and just make this display feel a little bit snappy. The resolution of the display is 720p as expected of a phone of this price category. And one thing that I'll say about the display is the fact that it is really a colorful display and it's bright, especially when you are using the phone indoors. But if you go out, that's where you kind of have to struggle, because the overall brightness, especially in a very sunny environment, might not really be okay for you, and you might have to squint your eyes to see the display properly. The maximum level of brightness that this phone can display is 500 nits, and for the price, again, I have to emphasize on the price. I feel it's acceptable. Now, one thing you might have noticed is the fact that the bezels around the display of this phone are quite massive, and it's something that I personally don't like. And I wish, even though this phone is quite affordable, I just wish they should have reduced the bezels around the display. It's quite massive, and I keep noticing it all the time when I'm using this phone. But the overall usability of the display is not affected by the size of the bezels. It's just like a personal preference of mine. I just wish they should have shrunken the bezels a little bit. And again, we have the water drop notch style display here, which is something that I feel should not even exist again in 2024, but it is what it is. We also have a Corning Gorilla Glass 3 on the display of this phone, which is quite rare for a phone that costs below $100. And this is coming from the fact that, okay, even phones that cost a bit more than this don't normally even give you Corning Gorilla Glass, but we have Corning Gorilla Glass 3 on the Poco C61. The size of the display makes it quite enjoyable to watch movies and stream content on YouTube. And overall, I'll just say the display is okay if you consider the fact that you are paying just slightly over 100k for this phone. One of the features that I didn't expect to see is the fact that you can lift to wake the screen of this display. There are phones out there that are way more expensive, and I wish they have this feature sometimes, and somehow Poco has been able to give us this feature on this phone, and it will just kind of help you when you keep the phone idle. The moment you pick it up, it's going to be aware that, okay, it's time to get going. The phone is powered by the MediaTek Helio G36, which is a 12 nanometer processor. And if you factor in everything the phone has to offer, then you're going to understand that this phone was not made for like heavy tasks. It's just there to handle the basic tasks, calls, maybe casually scrolling through social media, and just texting friends and family. It is not meant to kind of play games, because it is not even there. In fact, there are some games that won't run smoothly on this phone, no matter how you try. But day-to-day activities like maybe scrolling through social media, making calls, texting, and all the likes are going to work very effectively on this phone. For the performance, I would say if you want to get this phone, don't expect it to kind of do super crazy things, maybe play Call of Duty Mobile at the maximum frame rate, or maybe other games. There are a lot of games that I'm sure won't even run on this phone. So this phone is just meant for casual usage, just the basics, and you'll be good. It can be a perfect maybe backup phone. You have like a main phone that you're using, and you just need something to put your SIM just to make calls and text, and I think this phone can come in right and fill in that void. The phone is running on Android 14, and MIUI 14 is the user interface. But from the get-go, I was able to notice that there are a lot of features that I'm used to with MIUI that are not here. This is more like a toned-down version of MIUI, and if Poco had gone all the way to kind of put a complete MIUI experience on this phone, then I feel it is going to lag even more than how it is lagging right now, because there are times when app crashes and just stutters here and there. And one thing that I've been able to find is to install light version of apps on this phone, because they seem to run more effectively on the phone. For software, there isn't really much going on, but I'm going to say that you can just be able to customize this phone in a certain way, not really that customizable. There is no like freedom that you normally get with other Android phones, and you can have the ability to just change whatever you want to change. I feel with this phone, the choices have already been made for you, and you just have to accept them and just use the phone that way. It is not a bad thing, because the price again has to come in play, just 102,000 naira, and I feel if they go ahead and just allow the phone to be on full throttle, then the experience is really going to be poor, and you will not like the phone. So for software, I feel it's just okay. And again, I'm not even sure if there's going to be maybe a software update on this phone. The just Android 14 that it comes with might just be the last ever software update that will be on the phone. but fingers crossed on that one, and hopefully we get at least 1 or 2 major software updates on this phone. Now let's quickly talk about the battery before I go ahead to talk about the camera. In terms of battery, the phone comes with a 5000 milliampere battery, and let me tell you something, the battery experience is amazing. If you keep this phone on standby, it can last for maybe, I can say, a week, and it's not going to die. If you use it casually, maybe just making calls and replying to text, it will last a very long day. And I can even see myself using this. I've even seen myself getting like 2 days of battery life because of how I've used it casually, the way it's supposed to be used, not really doing a lot of things. But one area that is kind of a bit doubtful is the fact that it only supports 10 watts charging speed, and it takes over 2 hours to charge this phone. I charge it at night when I want to sleep, right? Because that's just the best way to charge this phone. It's not like those type of phones like the Poco F6. When I was using it, if I just put it in with the 90 watts charging speed, it could just go from 0 to 50% in like 10 to 15 minutes, and I'll be able to use it for the whole day. With this phone, you can't do something like that. Charging it and waiting for it to kind of fill up will end up being frustrating, and I just charge it before I sleep in the night and wake up in the morning and just get to enjoy the phone. So that's that for the battery, and I think the battery is even like one of the best features of this phone, hands down. Let's talk about the camera. We have an 8 megapixel primary camera, and there is a second auxiliary lens at the back of the phone. The selfie camera is 5 megapixel, and let me just say something before I even go ahead and start blabbing about these pictures. You are not really going to get good pictures from this phone, and don't go out there buying this phone and expecting to get like super high quality pictures. It's not going to work like that. For the most, I would say the pictures are just okay if you snap them in environments that are well lit, and the pictures are already showing on the screen right now. You can see how they look, and I also want to know what you think about the images in the comment section of this video. You can also only record videos at 1080p 30 frames per second with the front and back camera, and that's just it. Let me know what you think about the camera in the comment section. Rounding up, the Poco C61 is just an entry-level phone, and I feel you shouldn't go ahead and buy this phone if you want the best of the best. There are other Poco phones out there like the X6 Pro that is more of a flagship killer, and if you want a powerful device at a friendly price, that is one of the phones that you're supposed to get. For this one, it is meant for people that don't really require a lot from a smartphone, just basic things. The battery life is quite good, and the overall performance for the price is just good. That's it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comment section, and I'm going to see you in my next video.